contact was made with some facility managers from Buildings and Park Drive concerning the cooperative stormwater plan. Last meeting when I spoke, I had only talked to one individual, and they seemed to be on board and would cooperate in the program. However, most of the managers that I've spoke with were not receptive to the idea of sharing in a joint water stormwater program. And they had some questions, some of which I needed Dan for his engineering expertise to provide them some additional information. But based on the conversations that I've had, I don't feel even with Dan's information that they'll be willing to participate cooperatively together to solve that problem over there.
We discussed this at the last meeting, I believe.
Yes.
The meeting before that, isn't there an alternative?
Well, the alternative is that the township can bid it out and have it performed, have the work performed, and then assess each property under an equitable share of what the cost of the work is.
Dan, one of the comments I think Dawn got back from Black Box was that they already have a retention pond. Would you think it's fair to say that their expansions, that their stormwater detention didn't necessarily grow with the impervious areas that grew up there?
Yeah, I would probably say that it's probably the opposite of that, that they probably didn't have stormwater for their original development because it was done pre the ordinance. And then as they did additions, they maybe added it in for those additions.
Just for additions?
Yeah, so it wouldn't be comprehensive and address the area that we're concerned.
How about anybody else? Do you think anybody else is?
I'm not aware of anybody else that's more modern there that has anything else in place, but we could do a quick assessment. Take a look at it, but I don't believe there's anybody else there with stormwater other than Black Box.
What?
Other than Black Box. That has sort of, I mean, the whole issue is that those areas that area was developed before there was stormwater management required. So what's happened is the person at the bottom of the hill is receiving more water than they should, and it's overwhelming the system at the low point in the road, and the pipe needs upsized and it needs to be.
What is the total cost of that would be, Dan? Do you have an idea?
It was in the $50,000 range, yeah. Between 5 properties, 5 or 6 properties.
You said there were 6, Dawn. I think the issue is, though, that you're not faulting a company. If there was no stormwater management at the time when they built their buildings, and that's understandable. They didn't have it in there. I think it's the same thing on public sewers, though. If there's an area that everybody was on septic systems that was before the law, they might have had their own type of version put in. If they start creating problems in an area, then sometimes the municipal authority or the township steps in and says, hey, we're going to do a project to correct that. It's not anybody's fault that they didn't put sewers in back then. So I think if it's true what Dan's saying, that a lot of the buildings were built before stormwater was required, now it's an issue down there where somebody has to address it. It's not something that the one property owner can compel the other property owners to stop dumping water on his property. It does run downhill, and that's an issue where whether it's malfunctioning septic systems running on other properties or a stormwater, it's a regional, it's a collective issue. It's not just one person's issue. That was my point, Dan. That if they didn't put it in at the time, whenever their neighbors are getting hurt, sometimes the municipality has to do a project.
Right. There's a more modern standard now, and I mean, I'm not familiar with the law, but I understand the premise of what you're saying. It's similar if you make it analogous to sanitary sewers. If there was no system required then, and now there is a system required then,
So you have to tap.
you have to give a connection. Yeah, you got to give a connection.
So is that for John to look into this yet?
Let me ask a couple of questions first. A letter was sent to each of these property owners.
Yes, it was.
Was it a gentle letter or was it a strong letter?
No, it was general. I mean, a general letter. I believe a copy was prepared.
Gentle.
Oh, gentle. I'm sorry. Gentle, general. Yes, it was. Yeah. It wasn't strongly worded, if that's what you mean.
Will it cost them more money if we take on the project?
Yes, it would, that's why
Can you give a percentage of what the increase might be?
10, 15% for prevailing wage rates and so forth.
What if, without doing anything in this time, if we send them a letter, another letter, outlining perhaps a little more strongly what the options are, why it's necessary to do, and how it will cost more, and what do you all think of that, and ask for their consideration?
Well, I think it's what Dan said, though, that he's not quite sure the mechanism for it, but I don't think John would weigh in on whether the township should get involved in a project. I think he would weigh in on the mechanism to how to do it, just like the solicitor for the authority helps them set up their project. And actually, we did one on Cecil Hendersonville Road across from the Monaco plant. The township supervisor did that. It was a sewer project at the time, but our municipal authority and the property, the treatment plant owner across the road with the Monaco plant, they could never come to terms, so the township did a project, and they tied into that system, and everyone participated, and it was just like the authority would have done it if they could have worked out an agreement.
And is there some legal basis to kind of push them to tie into this? Is that something that needs to be looked at?
They're using the system right now. The system doesn't have capacity for the amount of water that they're putting into it. So technically, we would have to upgrade it to provide the right size capacity. So I'm not sure. I'm just unfamiliar with that, Tom, that being able to use that same method. And I'm not questioning whether it can or can't be. I just think that we need to be sure that we can do it that way. You know, if there was nothing there, you know, it would be a different story. But if something's there and it needs upgraded, my only question is that their charge, or is that just a general obligation of the township now?
Yeah, guess that has to be looked into.
I'm not sure.
That should be a fairly simple question, and then when we get a response, we'll
Then we'll
know.
send a letter.
Yeah.
I agree. Maybe we'll look into that response first. Okay, Dawn, what else do you have?
Other items, I'll discuss their agenda items as we get to it. One thing that was brought up in one of our meetings amongst the board and our volunteer fire departments, as well as our police department, was communications, having problems with communications, not speaking to each other. I'm talking about two-way radios. And Tom had asked, and I believe other board members, I'm still researching the permits for cellular towers that were placed in the township that agreed to give municipal space. But I'm also, in conjunction with that, researching grants that may be available for the upgraded communication systems for fire departments and police. There seem to be some of these grants out there, so it's just going to take a little more research, but maybe we can, in the time that I have personnel doing the search for the permits and getting those contracts, I'll also try to research grants and see if we can try to get some additional funding and group it together to have a good system.
Because I understand when we were discussing this, that it was, one of the tires was on Profio Road that is having problems with that. Is it a receiver, a relay out there, whatever you call it?
You know what, I'm not sure because I wasn't privy to those discussions.
Is that correct, Chief? Is it the tire out on Profio?
I think it's not even operable at this point, right, Ed? It's not even working for us.
My understanding that they are beginning to make repairs to that, or they will be in the very near future. Hopefully, some progress is going to be made here soon.
Okay.
That may help out a little bit in this area, at least for the fire department, not necessarily for the police department.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
That's all I have, anything.
Okay.